wondered about were Florida, no. Dallas, I don't know that I see it, but those were a couple I wondered about. Jari, does anyone look there? And I know everybody always asks about Crosby, and we talked the last pod about the rumors at the draft. You know, I meant to say, it's so funny. Sometimes, like, Kevin Weeks will tweet out, like, a city, and I don't know the skyline. I have to, like, reverse image it. Like, what city is that? And I didn't recognize his Denver picture when he sent it out. So funny. Anyway,
that's great.
One of the things I was told was, and I've said how there's people in sort of like Crosby's aura who want him to go. But one of the things I was told is that Crosby hates it when this stuff starts, and it actually makes it harder to convince him to do anything. So someone said to me, if you really want Crosby to leave, don't talk about it. Which means the Penguins fans are going to be all over social with it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, the campaign will begin. They'll have billboards all through Pennsylvania. Is this it for Sid? Where's Crosby being traded to? They'll take out ads back in Nova Scotia. All they can to make sure none of this actually comes to fruition. That's fantastic.
By the way, the other thing too is Gavin McKenna. We always talk about McKenna, the top pick, and I always say people don't want to use their offer sheet first rounder on a draft where Gavin McKenna is available. I had a couple people tell me you should start mentioning Keaton Verhoff in the same breath as McKenna. That he played in Victoria last year, the Western Hockey League. He's going to the NCAA this year. I had a few people say that, yes, McKenna is a stud, but this kid's going to be a stud too.
Yeah. He came, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but just all of a sudden launched onto the scene. And what a hit for the Royals, losing him and Cole Rezhny to the NCAA starting next year. So, well, I mean, with the way the Penguins are going, they could very much, depending on how much Sid has to say about it, very much be a team in the conversation for one of those two players come a little under a year from now. The Washington Capitals, Elliot. So they signed Martin Fehervary to a 7-year deal. Alex Ovechkin going into the final year of his contract. What are your thoughts on the Caps?
It was funny watching Chris Patrick speak to the media the other day. He's like, well, we tried to sign someone and we didn't get them. I wonder who he was talking about. Yeah, they made a big run at Ehlers. They wanted Ehlers badly. And, I'll say this. As I said, I thought Carolina was the team for Ehlers all the way, the team to beat. But I think Washington at least made them think. They took a huge run at it. They were really serious about Ehlers. I think they were prepared to give him what he wanted in the lineup, contract-wise, but obviously just didn't get it done. And they brought back Anthony Beauvillier, who was kind of waiting to hear what was going to happen. I also heard the Capitals took a long look at Jack Roslovic, who still is not signed. And so we'll see what goes on there. There wasn't a lot they had to do, right? They did a lot of work last year. They had a great season. They're a heck of a team. They like Fehervary getting done. That was obvious to me, and it's a great contract. Who knows if they would have beaten Carolina anyway, but his injury really hurt them back there. Like, they were not the same team without him against a group like the Hurricanes. So I don't think they needed to do a lot. They were disappointed they didn't get Ehlers, but overall, still a heck of a team. The one thing that's interesting to me is they took some criticism for their Justin Sordiff trade. They traded a second rounder for him, and people were like, why are the Capitals doing that? Like, I don't know. I have not seen him play enough. I don't know. But the one thing is, like, over the years, like Ross Mahoney, who's their amateur guy, has done an unbelievable job of finding players where they draft, right? And so I got to think this goes back to his junior days. I think the Capitals are very good at evaluating players. So I want to see this play out. I know to a lot of people this seems really lopsided. I'm like, just the way the Capitals evaluate players, there's something they see here that maybe some others don't.
Alexi Protas, one of the great recent examples of just that, right? Looked a little clunky his first foray into the league, but man, not anymore. Key guy for the Caps. All right, the Boston Bruins. So welcome back, Sean Corrali. They signed Tanner Jeannot. They acquire Victor Arvidsson from the Edmonton Oilers. It's interesting, like after all that happened this last season, Elliot, all the players that went out the door for Boston, like for the first time in a long time, you're kind of looking at the Bruins a little differently. And part of that is because they went back to the terrific looking throwback era jerseys that will be their permanent look come next season, but also just the personnel as they've gone into
that the reason?
Yeah, well, maybe one. But how do you view the Bruins as we sit here right now?
So let's do the big one first, Jeannot, because that had everyone screaming. Like they were like, what is Boston doing here with this? So I asked around. I was like, okay, why? And because the other thing that is interesting is it's always good to keep an idea on the pulse of a fan base, because first of all, the hardcore fans, they always see things that us looking at 30,000 feet don't see, and even, their local reporters too, definitely, especially in a place like Boston where there's lots of good coverage. And the fans there were upset because they look back at deals like Matt Bolesky and David Backes, and they're like, why are we doing this? And like the one thing I would say about Jeannot is, yes, it's a 5-year deal, but the number isn't going to hurt you. And so it's not as high as those other deals were. The one thing I think that happened with Boston was I heard there were like 10 teams after this guy. Like I heard the competition for Jeannot was fierce. I heard the Rangers were in it. I heard Ottawa was in it. Like it fits with Toronto because of what Toronto likes. I think there were a lot of teams that were after him. And I heard initially the Kings offer to him was something like under $2 million a year the first time. And like, there's just not a lot of guys like him around anymore. I've always liked Jeannot. Now he has to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy. But I think there were a ton of teams after him. There's not a lot of guys like him. And I think one of the things too is like the Bruins have Kastelik, who does this job. But last year, I think they felt at times like they want Zadorov just to play hockey. Like I think they felt last time Zadorov was like fighting too much or going after guys too much. Like they're still not a big team. They've still got the big bad Bruins thought a little bit. I think they brought Jeannot in to be a little bigger, a little meaner, and so Zadorov didn't have to do some of this stuff as much. So that's why they did it. I remember I noticed like there were people like, what? I think that's the reason. And also like the AAV isn't that high that it's going to punish you. I don't think like it's those other deals. I think the other thing too is like there's a big change going out in the Bruins. Like the team has finally turned over from the Chara, Bergeron, Marchand years, right? Like Marchand was the last of that group, really. Now it's McAvoy, it's Pasternak, and those guys are really good pros. Jeannot is like a guy who always tests very highly in fitness. Like he won it like every year, I think, in Nashville. Like he's a good pro. So I think that's, what's that?
I was going to say he's got 2 fitness awards named after him during his junior upbringing.
Right. So like, people in Boston can decide if they like this or don't like this, but I was really curious about it because of just the reaction to it. So I wanted to explain some of that. I thought it was also interesting, like Boston's got a lot of flexibility.